Hey everyone, welcome back to Admix for an episode of Giving the Game Away. And today we're going to talk about something that's slightly different outside of gaming per se. We're going to talk about brand advertising versus performance advertising, a really timely topic.
Very timely, very important as well. How are you, Sam?
I'm doing well. Back working from home.
You're an office person, aren't you? You like being in the office.
Yeah, I like a mix of both. I like being able to go and see people. I do like sometimes, when you have to do some specific project, I do like to be at home. So I think flexibility is going to be the future of work.
Yeah, most likely. Flexibility is good. Having a bit of freedom. Totally off topic immediately. Sorry about that. Brand advertising versus performance advertising. Very timely, very important, mostly because of the IDFA changes in iOS 14, which, iOS 14 now has people, now asks people whether they want to be tracked between apps, which is absolutely huge, very important aspect of performance advertising, which we'll get to. This is obviously not in the gaming space to start with. We're going to bring it back there. So some people who are more game oriented might find this to be a dry topic. So to lighten things up, every time we say the word advertising, feel free to take a shot. And we just won't be liable for any damages that might cause.
No, I wish I had some drinks around me, but I don't.
I get that a lot when I'm in conversation with people. Anyway, so brand advertising versus performance advertising is they're like, while they both use the word advertising, they're sort of polar opposites in many ways. It's like old versus new, short term versus long term, but they're both really important to a brand. So first things first, we should really define them. Brand advertising is the old one, so we'll start with that. When most people think of advertising, this is what they imagine. These are like the big ideas, the motivational video campaigns, posters in subways. It's what Mad Men, like the entire premise of that show was about. It's everywhere and it's memorable, and it's not memorable just because it's everywhere. It's designed to be emotional. It's designed to get inside your head. It's designed to appeal to your core values and stuff like that. It's a huge part of our culture in a weird way. And like it or hate it, these are often very artistic. Nike ads, for example, are so enthusiastic and so inspiring and powerful. Apple are really good at it. Right back in 1984 with that first short film they showed at the Super Bowl, with the woman throwing a hammer through a screen, which obviously Epic has now taken in parody of Apple, but that's a whole other topic. These ads are still really strong and powerful, and a lot of people even have a favorite ad. Do you have a favorite ad, Sam?
No, I don't, but I do have. There's some companies definitely that are doing, better job than others.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's the part of the reason of brand advertising. Like, as soon as you think of brand, being like, oh yeah, they're doing entertaining shit, you're thinking of them, and that's the point of it. Performance advertising is like the punchier, short-term results solution. These are often very targeted. They're often very data-driven. They are working towards a single KPI most of the time, like higher sales or just video views or game downloads. These are the things you'll see in interstitial ads and stuff like that, or any banner ad promoting a sale or something down that line. They're really designed to push the effectiveness of every dollar spent on them. Performance advertising sort of came out of nowhere. Well, not out of nowhere. A fair few years ago. I'm not exactly sure about when the advent of performance marketing was. I think to my knowledge, it's been gradually rising since the birth of the internet. I'm not sure. You might have more context.
Yeah, no, I think we probably should define this in a different way. So the format is basically a consequence of the media that underlines it, right? So we used to have media like the TV, which was great to promote these big ideas and have broadcast to a lot of people at the same time. but of course you can't buy a product on TV. So the brands were kind of, they had to deal with the media that they had at the time, and radio and newspaper and the TV at the time was the main media. So it was, relying on the tools that they had. If they could drive performance through the TV, they would have, but there was no media that was aligning long-term brand building and performance at the same time. And this only finally happened when the internet arrived, where brands realized that they could use the media to advertise and get in front of a lot of people in a very targeted way, but also drive performance from the same media. So advertising on the internet enables you to create awareness to some extent, although we will debate later that this might not be the most appropriate channel to do so for various reasons. But you can then push your users down the funnel and to your website, your shop, your wherever you want to do, whatever you want to drive, whether it's a download or a sale, you can actually do that within the media as well. So by evolution of the media, we were able to drive more performance, which has always been the goal. Advertising has always been about selling products. It's just that before the internet, the pipe was disconnected. You advertised on one end, and then you'd hope that people saw it and eventually learn about your store and came to your store. It's very difficult to track attribution. It was very difficult to assess any kind of performance. And so different KPIs were created to assess the quality and the performance of TV ads, like the audience that you can reach and how long they were spending watching this ad specifically, and that would drive the price of the adverts. With the internet, all of a sudden, we were able to track individual people, and we were able to actually assess if that person has bought or not. So it gave the brands a very clear view on what was working, what was not, and also driving ROI immediately, which is why Google and Facebook, which are the best performing channel to advertise online, have become some of the biggest businesses in the world, because for every dollar that you put in there, you get more than $1 as a result. So very predictable and very result focused.
Yeah, and honestly, for me, the biggest part of them is how measurable they are. I think that was a real renaissance moment for a lot of brands and a lot of advertisers, because brand advertising, while effective in its own way, you can't track brand opinion as accurately as you can the performance of a performance advertisement. So the results you're getting instead of putting content out there and hoping that it's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And that data-driven results focus sort of dominated the mindset of many brands. They started to lean towards it a little bit more. Especially, we've got a quote here from John Wanamaker, who was a department store, I think mogul. He said that half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half. And that really summarizes the major issue with brand advertising, in that it's effective, but you don't know where it's effective. Which of the adverts you're putting out is doing what you need it to do? Are you getting the actual return you want, or are you getting something that looks like the return you want? So yeah, performance advertising was amazing. And it did lead to a huge burst in advertisement on the internet, because brands love it, because it's effective and it gets results. But there is also an element of this boom in creators that the internet made as well. Everyone is a creator. YouTubers can use performance advertising at a much smaller scale, but they can. So yeah, there was a huge burst in advertisements. To put that in context, back in the 1970s, I think it was reported that people would see as low as 500 ads a day. Today, it's predicted that the average person sees about 8,000 ads per day. Most of those are performance advertisements. I don't think that's unfair of me to predict, is it, Sam?
Yeah, most of them would be online. The big difference between the 70s and now is, the time that people spend online on their mobile, and definitely a lot of those would be would be performance ads, whether it's for you to download a game or input your email to download something. Like, performance is about driving immediate results and or clicking to access a shop or something like that. So definitely more and more advertisers are leaning towards that. But it's also because previous media, as you said, if you look at the global budget that you need to be running a campaign on TV, for example, we're talking millions of dollars, right? So advertising used to be reserved to top companies, big brands who could afford to do these big awareness campaigns and then wait for a year and see how the result would actually pan out. But with the internet and the ability to, as you said, invest 50 quid and see if you make 55, this opens a huge long tail of advertisers that now have access to these platforms. Restaurants next door, or the dry cleaner, or small businesses that represent a huge amount of spend. Facebook's revenue is about 90% from this long tail of advertisers. Only 6% of their revenue comes from top 100 advertisers. So it's very fragmented. There's a lot of really small spenders. I think they have 3 million advertisers that are making a big fraction of their revenue. This is why when one of the big brands like Coca-Cola and so on are boycotting Facebook, it doesn't really affect them, because most of their revenue is made of the long tail. And that was not possible before the internet. And that was not possible before performance advertising, because these small shops, they want immediate results. They're not going to create an awareness campaign to talk about how their locksmith business is changing the world, right? What they want is that when people are looking for that, they find them first and they go to them. So it's very performance orientated, and this really democratized the world of advertising, which is why a lot of businesses have flourished because of that. But at the same time, it's also why you're seeing 8,000 ads a day instead of 500, because everyone can advertise. And before, this was something that was reserved to the bigger brands.
Yeah, absolutely. That major strength of being performance focused and getting results is incredible for smaller brands, as you're saying. It is also the downside of performance marketing for other brands. Performance-driven ads don't necessarily change a consumer's mindset. They don't necessarily reach the heart of a consumer. So you don't get that commitment, that brand love, and that brand advertising element of it, that brand love is a thing that brands like Innocent are built on. Their core social fan base of people who love the content they put out, and they love the brand because it seems fun and inviting. That is how they've become successful. Same with Blizzard. Like, Blizzard could have focused on performance advertising alone and gotten a huge amount of players, but their cinematic trailers and the worlds they build, that's what sort of sticks in people's hearts. So there is an element of needing to decide what is the right focus for your brand. And yeah, some people it's going to be performance marketing, and some people it's going to be a big mixture of both. But let's just summarize the two in like just a really plain way, just to make it super clear. So the core KPI for performance ads are often going to be shorter term, but very results focused. Clicks, downloads, purchases, driving traffic to a website. They're very effective. They do still offer room for creativity, and they're very measurable. The main KPI of brand advertisements are viewability, brand love, being top of mind in a category. You do have to figure out where your audience is, which data can help with. But these ads are harder to measure and track because emotions are harder to measure and track. At the end of the day, a balance between the two is often ideal, because they both have their benefits. But you need to figure out what the right balance is for your brand. So it's probably worth talking about the future of this struggle between brand and performance as well. The reality is that performance marketing is a dominant strategy for a lot of smaller companies. And so in some cases, that's because that is absolutely right for their company. But in some cases, because they feel they can't compete on the global stage with bigger brands. Performance ads, you can access them. You can be a smaller spender compared to Coca-Cola, for example, and short-term revenue pays the bills. But I mean, I personally don't think that smaller companies have to just never do brand advertising because they get priced out of it, like they can't afford it. There are cheaper ways to do it. For example, Innocent have amassed immense brand equity, as I was saying before, purely through being fun on social media. It's a completely different kind of brand advertising. It's a very modern kind of brand advertising, but it's super important. And standing out in such a busy, ad-heavy world, being top of mind is really powerful. And brand marketing is how you do that.
Yeah. And there are a lot of new channels, right? Now you can create your community. You can run your social channels, effectively your Instagram strategy, all the stuff that you put out without asking for direct click or sales. That's brand marketing. It's just a different way, different channels to push it. So while the actual advertising industry is more gearing towards paid and performance marketing, there is more and more small businesses also have the ability to create content, and that content that they push out is effectively trying to excite people and getting people to follow them. But yeah, it is, as you said, it's starting to be measurable a bit more than it used to be. Generally, the small businesses could just not afford to create a big campaign and then wait and see the results. They need to have some tangible results. And I think the internet is definitely better at driving results. It's all database, and we kind of lost the art of advertising and the madmen and the big ideas. Something that really makes people think about the product, even if they're not seeing the ad. And that's really when you know that you're top of mind with the consumer. Performance ads, it's really like a short-term drug. It's you can turn on the spend and your revenue will increase because more people see your ad and convert. If you stop spending, you stop your campaign from one day to another, your spend you might just get zero revenue, right? Because people are just clicking. They might not even know your brand. They just follow links. Like there's a lot of Facebook adverts where you end up in some e-commerce website that have nice pictures, but you don't even know which website it is. What brand is it? It's just an aggregator. So the brand is being lost in this sea of performance ads because some of them just haven't been able to adapt.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing. I mean, this adaptation is going to be such an important part for a lot of brands, and being a part of innovations in the advertising space and being a part of channels as they come up is so important to be doing that, to just be topical, to be visible. And that is an opportunity for performance marketing because an uncluttered area means more chance your ad will be clicked. But it's also a huge opportunity for brand marketing, brand advertising, because in an uncluttered platform or an uncluttered environment, you're more likely to have a message that will cut through. Not everyone will remember every single advert on the London Underground. They'll remember some of them, but it's a very dense environment and it's not necessarily a place where you can absorb everything. Whereas a new social media might be uncluttered enough for your message to stand out above everything else, which is huge. Obviously, gaming is a big part of that. It's an environment that is getting innovation in monetization and advertising space. And that means it's a huge opportunity for brands who want to either brand market and change people's opinions in a place where people are having fun, or performance marketers who are trying to find a different avenue to reach someone. I personally think it's a bigger opportunity for brand marketers, but I don't know what your opinion is on that, Sam.
Well, I think actually gaming is probably one of the first media channel which will ally both branding and performance. With the appropriate infrastructure, right? We already talked about the fact that the infrastructure that is gaming's infrastructure today is just borrowed from the internet. We're trying to place 2D adverts on top of the games. This is not adapted. This is not native to gaming. So the things that we're building at Admix, in-play infrastructure, it's about really understanding the depth, the complexity of games, the 3D element of it sometimes, and trying to insert branded products within this environment. So it could be adverts. That's obviously the branding piece, and you can get, the billion and a half gamers, right, to actually see your message while they're playing a game, a message that is not just in their face, but natively integrated with the ads around the stadium when they're playing a football game, or on top of the track while they're playing a racing game. So you can really create more of almost like a sponsorship feeling that your brand is part of the experience with them, which is very cool and really helps to create this brand love a lot more than just a simple ad on the internet. So the brands will, as soon as the infrastructure is more mainstream, they will really embrace it. That's my hope, and what we're working towards, of course, is that this is there's a lot of ingredients already in place to show that this channel is going to be a lot more beneficial for brand. But that doesn't mean that these brands cannot sell products.
No.
We're already seeing, right, on Fortnite, for example, which is always the example because they're so innovative when it comes to really building up that economy. They are virtual goods or wearables or jackets that are being sold for thousands of pounds. So brands are not only advertising for it, they're actually selling the good. And then you can use the jacket as an avatar inside the world. And effectively, you become an influencer in the game because millions of people playing with you can see you wear that jacket. So all the mechanics that happen in the real world, effectively the high street to the influencer, all of that is being brought in the gaming space, which is effectively a 3D version of the internet. And so I think this is going to merge really, really nicely and become a real channel for brands to not only advertise and get a lot of awareness, but actually also drive results. But we'll see. We're still working on it.
Yeah, but I mean, virtual goods are one of the most exciting things for me that we're working on, and just in the industry in general. I love the idea that the fact that you can interact with these objects a little bit more and see them in 3D space. It's so native and so perfect for gaming as a thing. It's exciting. It's hard to predict, as you say, but it's really exciting.
And the next step is to have, again, it's really trying to blend the world of advertising within the world of gaming, not just to stick everywhere. That's not the point. But it's to, for example, have a branded Red Bull can that if you use it and you drink it in the game, you get more stamina, right? So trying to really blend the game mechanics with the brands as well. And Red Bull obviously stands for high energy, but other brands might stand for other things and might affect the gameplay differently. So just becomes really, really interesting to see how far this can go. And of course, the whole idea here is that the game developer has total control over it, so that they can make sure that these ads are non-intrusive. And at the end of the day, the goal is to keep users longer in the game, not to drive them away.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we could talk about this all day, I think. To put a concluding point on the brand ads versus performance ads topic, I think it's worth saying that performance ads are really good and they're very addictive, especially for smaller devs in the gaming space, because you'll get eyeballs, you'll get downloads, it'll be very good. But as you said, Sam, as soon as you stop spending, you stop getting results, and that is it's like a drug. That's not a long-term sustainable thing necessarily, or at least it's not necessarily the right way to get big.
This is why we see when companies really, really get big, like Rovio, for example, they obviously used to acquire users, but now with performance ads, but now they're on TV, now they're in the tube. after a certain level, it's really about being there, being front of mind in front of the user. Why do you still see, I live in next to the Silicon Roundabout here in Old Street in London. There's ads for Google all year long. Like,
Yeah.
we know what Google is, right? It's not to drive us to the website or to Google it or to to think what is this. Like, we already know what it is. They're doing it because they want just you to think about them effectively, and that if they are not taking the space there, Facebook might take it. So a lot of this brand advertising is actually defensive mechanism as well for the brands, because if they're not advertising, someone else will. So it's really about being front of mind, which is crazy if you think about it. But for big companies, it's just a small investment to make sure that London constantly thinks about Google.
Yeah, but it is so important, and I think that the biggest thing for me is that any indie dev listening doesn't feel like this is a game where you have to have money to do brand advertising. You can do it through social media. You can do it through purely digital channels. You can make a very low budget brand advertising strategy to go alongside a performance marketing strategy. But that is a huge topic in itself, and I think we should probably leave that for another podcast episode, because we did write it as a separate article. I don't know why I'm being so mysterious.
Or to get people to listen to the next episode.
Of course. Stay tuned. Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. Like, performance marketing is great. We're not saying that's a bad idea. But I think brand marketing is going to have more and more of a place in the gaming world, and you really shouldn't feel like it's not for you because you don't have the same budgets as brands like Rovio.
Yeah,
and that's.
I think one thing is, brand really becomes the differentiator in a lot of times.
It does.
If you want to compete only with performance ads, it's really about who has the most money and probably the best strategy and the best optimization. But assuming that you have the same talent, you're going to get more users if you spend more, right? So it's quite simple. If you have the cash, great. This is how most studios acquire users. And then they resell it for more to other players. So users are just bouncing around multiple publishers and multiple apps. But the part that cannot be bought is the brand. Sure, you can pay money for your brand to be seen, but if you have a terrible brand messaging, you can spend millions of dollars and it's just not going to resonate with people. So there's more to it than just the spend. So what I'm trying to say here is that even though it is being seen as something being expensive, it actually, if it's done smartly through organic reach or content, you can really build a mini brand in your space and really resonate with customers without having to pay. So while you can't really differentiate yourself on the performance side except by spending more, you can actually differentiate yourself on the brand side by having messages that are grabbing people's attention, by standing for things that people care about, by being nice to people when it's a difficult time out there. There's a lot of things that can be done on the brand side, which I think most people may not think of it as advertising, but actually at the end of the day, it's how your brand is being perceived. So I think there's a lot of things that can be done there, even for the small players.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great note to end on, something to think about for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what we're doing here at Admix, right? We're just starting on a marketing department. We have less than 10 people working on the marketing side, and we're creating a lot of content. So we're definitely on the side of the small and upcoming players. I think, again, that could be another great podcast to look back at our first year or 6 months really of creating content and what we got out of it. But it's clear that, we are creating content that starts to resonate with a small niche of people, which is our target audience. So building the brand this way is just a lot smarter than just, trying to force users to listen to the podcast, for example. That's a very inefficient strategy, right? Especially when you have content that is pretty niche. It's what we talk about with hyper casual. If you're appealing to everyone, sure, you can put it out and see who downloads it. But for most businesses out there, it's more tailored. And this is where a brand can make a big difference because you can really try to appeal to your target audience. Well, thanks everyone for following us. Please make sure to follow our social and come back next week for another episode.